tired of being divided by race and they just want people to be able to rise by their own talent and their own hard work?
Inclusion.
Is it possible that most Americans would rather be judged on their hard work, talent, and their own character and their own achievements,
as opposed to
identity politics?
We would.
That's what people have rejected.
We would. How about you let us?
And I think it's time for us to move past trying to divide ourselves up the way they have done on these university campuses and embrace everybody and equal opportunity for everybody.
It's hard to embrace everyone when you want to erase people's histories, when you want to make it easier, when you want to make it easier for folks to be discriminated against, when you want to make it harder.
Also, the DEI regimes have been used to discriminate against other kinds of people. I mean, Asian students, for instance, were discriminated against broadly in this country.
I think you're conflating affirmative action with DEI, which is
I disagree.
In your mind, what's the difference between equality and equity, and which one is better for you?
Great question. Equality to me is...
Hello, everybody. Guys, let's get right into the segment. Now that the Iran stuff has settled down a bit, Republicans are back doing what they like doing best, the creme de la creme for them, attacking minorities. Check this out, and we'll talk about it.
A new twist tonight in the president's culture wars. The head of the University of Virginia is resigning after the Trump administration demanded that he step aside as a condition to settle a civil rights investigation that focused on the school's diversity practices. In a letter to the UVA community, Jim Ryan writes, "I cannot make a unilateral decision to fight the federal government in order to save my own job. To do so would not only be quixotic, but appear selfish and self-centered to the hundreds of employees who would lose their jobs, the researchers who would lose their funding, and the hundreds of students who could lose financial aid or have their visas withheld." The DOJ told CNN on Friday that it welcomes, quote, "leadership changes in higher education that signal institutional commitments to our nation's venerable federal civil rights laws." This is just another frontier in something that is happening all over the country. But the point that the UVA president made in that letter, that so many people are just collateral damage in a crusade against three letters, DEI. That's the reality that we're living in.
Well, look, there's more to the story. One is that the university voted to get rid of the DEI programming, and apparently this guy just renamed it and gave it other names and other acronyms and other euphemisms, and so he tried to get it to identify as something else, but it was still DEI, so he kind of went around, I think, what the school was wanting to do. And, you know, I don't really shed any tears for this. I think the country doesn't want this. I think it's bad for higher education. I think it's bad for corporations. And I think it's time for us to move past trying to divide ourselves up the way they have done on these university campuses and embrace everybody and equal opportunity for everybody.
It's hard to embrace everyone when you want to erase people's histories, when you want to make it easier, when you want to make it easier for folks to be discriminated against, when you want to make it harder for people to be admitted to schools. The reason why the school would not have voted to remove DEI if Donald Trump didn't have the backlash on DEI. So it's not like the school wanted to. There's some a cause and effect here. I think that the president is taking one for the team, and I think that he is actually being the leader by saying, I don't want people to lose their jobs, unlike what this administration did by cutting workforce in the federal government. I think that people don't really understand what DEI is, and I think that is the problem. But DEI has made this country great, and it will continue to make it great. And there will be backlash from this. Like, the pendulum continues to swing, and I think this is an overreach, and going into higher education institutions is not going to stop there. It's going to go into school districts, and we just saw a Supreme Court case today on LGBTQ.
There is a future world in which a Democratic president uses the power of the presidency to threaten private institutions, public institutions who don't do what they want them to do.
What do you mean
that is going to happen?
That was the past. Joe Biden's administration already did that.
Future past. You didn't like it when it happened then.
You know, it was
but
wrong,
you like
and it was
now.
bad for business and bad for education.
You know, Abby,
So I actually don't completely agree with Ashley there. I think Republicans know exactly what DEI is. This is just a way for them to be bigots, and they like it because of that reason. They know what it means. They know, trust me, they know what it means. And Scott Jennings, he keeps saying, yeah, it's bad for colleges and corporations. Yeah, it's so bad for colleges to have a vast amount of kids of different backgrounds and experiences and nationalities. Yeah, that's so horrible. Just say it, Scott. You would love segregated schools. Let me know in the comments. But how Republicans, conservatives talk about this make me think this is exactly what they want. And a study was done, I said this before, about DEI and corporations, and found that companies that incorporated DEI were more profitable by like 20%, close to 20%, because of course they were, guys. What a surprise. Having people of different backgrounds tend to be good for problem solving, since they don't have the same approach, right? They handle issues in different ways. Of course it's going to be beneficial for a company. And I actually think Republicans are very well aware of that fact too, right? And it's part of the reason that they attack DEI so much, that I think they're scared of losing their place in the world. Other than the obvious bigotry that's so deeply embedded in who they are, Republicans, I mean, at this point, it's becoming part of their genetic makeup. They don't want a world in which everyone gets a fair shot, because then mediocre people like Scott Jennings won't be nearly as successful. Like, what are you so worried about? It's all about merit, right? Like you said, mano a mano. Because, guys, I know a lot of intelligent white people, and they don't seem to have a damn worry in the world about DI or anything like that. Seems to me that they are completely confident in their skills and abilities. The only people I ever hear crying are the low intelligent, high confidence, Scott, bigots, Scott.
I was thinking about this, like UVA was founded by Thomas Jefferson, right? The man who helped to lead our country away from tyranny, a man who believed in states' rights, who did not want a king to tell us how to live. And now here we have this bizarre irony of the American president acting like a king, telling a state-level institution who should and should not be leading it and what they should be teaching in it. This is sort of the modern-day form of tyranny against our educational institutions. And I think that we need to really protect our educational institutions as well. I'm very concerned, as a Jewish American, I'm also very concerned about arguments like DEI or anti-Semitism being used not to oppose those issues that they're concerned about, but to use it to blow up higher education and schools that really educate all of our country and make our society more whole. And this is just one more example. Thomas Jefferson, again, I'll say it, must really be rolling around in his grave.
You can't be for equality and all of us coming together when E is about T and DEI. I'm laughing here because
it's two different words.
No, it's equity. I know it's
are
equity and equality,
things.
but they mean similar things in terms of choosing from diverse pools, including people, and having.
I disagree.
What in your mind? What's the difference between equality and equity, and which one is better for you?
Great question. Equality to me is equal opportunity. Equity is trying to guarantee outcomes, and those are two different.
That's a nuanced conversation that you guys don't want to have.
But I also think that that is your personal definition of it. That is not.
Well, you asked me my opinion.
I know, but I'm saying my point is that to people who support DEI, equity means exactly what you just described as equality. And in fact, they don't use the word equality because not everybody is exactly the same. So how are you going to make two individuals who are actually different equal? You just want them to have equitable opportunities. So in a way, it feels like you have the definitions kind of reversed.
Well, I think also the DEI regimes have been used to discriminate against other kinds of people. I mean, Asian students, for instance, were discriminated against broadly in this country.
I think you're conflating affirmative action with DEI.
But we also know that once the Supreme Court ruled that Asian student admissions have actually gone down in Ivy League schools. But I will say, to bring up Thomas Jefferson.
Really quick, I looked at that study, and it's because Harvard and other schools are doing a more holistic approach where they're testing things like likability and sociability. And I guess Asian students were scoring a little bit lower than that. It wasn't that, because they're Asian, we're not accepting you. Bigots like Scott, I'm sure he knows this. Or regardless, whichever way you see it, either he knows this and he's making a false argument because he's a bigot, or this is just what he sees. It's anti-Asian. Last time he made this argument, he said anti-white. He knows that didn't go well. Because to say that anything is anti-white in this country it's completely laughable.
There's also an interesting part to his story as well. Thomas Jefferson also had children with a slave, Sally Hemings. And so in a world where we want to erase DEI and we want to erase people's history, what is the story that UVA can actually be taught? Can Sally Hemings be taught? Is that book removed? The family of Sally Hemings, we didn't even know about Sally Hemings until I was alive, and on the Oprah show it came out on, right? So the Sally Hemings family and the Jefferson family had two different lifestyles, right? And we would say that in a world with equity, that should there be some reciprocity for the mistress of Thomas Jefferson, who most likely probably was not a slave by choice? I mean, these are the nuanced conversations that when we just want to do a blanket wipe out, those things get erased.
There's a difference. Again, DEI is a nuanced conversation you guys don't want to have, because it's not about, look at the NFL, for example, with the Rooney Rule. It's not about forcing people to interview those candidates. It's that those candidates didn't have an opportunity to be seen to get that interview. That's what it's about. But you guys love to shorten things. MAGA, DEI, you put it on hats and t-shirts, everyone feeds into it and they think it's this great boogeyman. You guys done a phenomenal job with it, I gotta be honest with you, but that's not what it's about. We can have the nuanced conversation about what diversity and equity and inclusion is supposed to accomplish, whether it be in the workforce, hiring practices, but we're not having that because we can't have it.
We do have to leave it here.
People just are tired of being divided by race, and they just want people
We're
to
not
be
trying
able
to
to
divide
rise
by
by
race.
their
We're trying
own
to give
talent and their own
people
hard work.
inclusion. The I
Is it possible that most
including.
Americans would rather be judged on their hard work, talent, and their own character and their own achievements, as
actually true,
opposed
we
to
would.
in
We would.
identity politics?
We would.
Yeah, that's what people have
We
rejected.
would. How about you let us?
Right.
I
That's the
think
thing.
you guys should
We would.
continue to run the Democratic Party and the left purely on
I don't-
identity
I'm not
politics. It is
part of
working
the Democratic.
swimmingly
I'm not
for
part
you.
of
It
it.
There's
is
a lot of
working
identity
swimmingly.
politics
Politics on your
happening on the
side.
right. We got to acknowledge that. All right, guys. Up next for us, the
This is the thing. For people like Scott Jennings, they hear something like DEI, diversity, and automatically to them that means anti-white. Like, think about the type of person you have to be to hear something like that and think it's anti-white. These same people think Black History Month is anti-white. I mean, really, something's wrong up there. I said he had racism Tourette's, but he has these people have some deep-rooted issues. And guys, that's what it is. At least this is what I think it is. They're just scared. They don't want the world to see that, in fact, maybe they are the incompetent ones. Not all the Black and brown people or women, you guys jump to call DEI hires. Just yesterday, I think it was, Charlie Kirk called the Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson a DEI judge. Think about what it would take to become a Supreme Court justice, let alone a Black woman justice, and the uphill climb that 100% that was. Like, just say what you want, Republicans. Say what you want, Charlie. Say the N-word. Republicans are such little cowards, because there's no way you think Ketanji Brown Jackson is incompetent or unqualified. So what is it that you're really, really trying to say when you call someone a DI hire, a DI judge? Stop being a little punk ass. Go ahead, be alphas, you guys like to call yourselves, because your mommy calls you that. Call people what you really want to call them. I'm sure nothing will go wrong. Do it. You're not scared, are you? Go ahead, Charlie. This is the thing. Republicans, they know if it was at least somewhat of a fair race, that they would lose before the race starts. People who are worried about DI, this is who I'm really talking about. They know that they haven't faced adversity to ever really win that race. Right? If you get what I'm trying to say there. And I said this before, they're afraid of the resiliency, the vigilance, the unyielding will to keep going while they do everything they can to stop us from progressing. And in their mind, if they don't stop us from moving forward, they know they will inevitably move backwards. Because like I said, they aren't built for fairness, which to them feels like adversity. But I can keep rambling on. I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. I try and read all of them. Please leave a like, subscribe, really helps the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one.